today, which is we ought to feel very safe in here today, at least. Got some protection outside. So Monday we had a hearing on a bill that was related to artificial intelligence, and I know that's a topic that is very much in the conversation today, and I think there's a lot of information out there, there's a lot of misinformation out there about what AI is and what it isn't. You know, as I've had dinner with friends, you know, some view robots as AI, and so I thought it'd be good to have a conversation today. And, you know, on that front, I've asked Representative Sean Wilcott to come and talk to us a little bit about those topics, about what is AI, what isn't it, and then talk a bit about a task force there's some motion on there. So with that, is there any other business I need to get to? I don't believe so. I think we're good in terms of minutes and everything else, Diane? Okay, very good. So with that, I'd welcome to committee Representative Wilcott. And again, committee, I want this to be more of a conversation. So please, you know, we'll listen to those prepared remarks, but we'll have some discussion about it. Thank you.
Yeah, please. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate the time here and coming down to talk about this. I did put together some talking points, and this morning when I got up, I thought, you know, it might be easier to print some of these out. So I'll hand out a couple of printouts, and I'll also give them to your team if we want to go ahead and publish them as well. But quickly on this, kind of, let me steal one of those from you, Dale. AI seems to be one of the hottest topics in the news pretty consistently. And as the chair had said, there seems to be a lot of opinions on what it is and some misconfusion of what it is. So I wanted to come down real quickly and share with the committee, you know, what is AI? I'm not going to get super technical on it, so I'm going to try to keep it at a high level, but go deep enough to where we can kind of understand how it applies. So artificial intelligence, when you really boil it down to the basic, is nothing more than a software package. And there's multiple components to that, right? You can have machine learning, we can go to deep learning, and we can go into all the different variables to it, but when you boil it down to it, it's nothing more than a software package that operates on statistical analysis. What is the most probable outcome? That's really at a core of what AI is, artificial intelligence is. So when you break down and look at it at that component, you can then start analyzing it on different aspects of things. It's nothing new. AI, the early components of AI, the machine learnings, have been around since the 50s, 1950s. So when people say AI is this new thing, it's not anything new. We've been using it in industries since the 80s, actually effectively. It's not until about 2022 when OpenAI put ChatGPT and everybody picked up their cell phone and has access to a chatbot. And that's the image what a lot of people think when they think of what is AI, is a chatbot on your phone or on your laptop. It is a form of AI, and it is by far the largest impact that we've had from an awareness standpoint. But that's not what all of AI is. Earlier, the comments around robotics, that's another, I'll say, mischaracterization of what artificial intelligence is. We've seen the movies Terminator and iRobot and all those components. Robotics or automation is I typically tell people that's the muscle behind a lot of automation things. The AI is the intelligence side. That's the brains behind it. And again, it's more of a software-driven aspect. You can marry those two together to have a complete system, but they are totally different components to an overall system of that. So why is it advancing so rapidly today? Again, easy access to your phone, so now you have public awareness. As public awareness goes, you have investments, so now you have companies making unheard of investments into the technology development. And then the one part that I really like to call out, knowledge is power. We've all heard that saying. And right there on point 4, or on bullet point 4, if you look at it, all the data that was recorded in human history up until 2003 was a total of 5 exabytes of data. At the end of last year, mankind was recording 0.4 zettabytes, which is 80 times that in one day. And as you see, as that data is being generated and recorded, the topics of data centers, which we've all heard about, as that data continues to grow, the the power, that knowledge, continues to increase at a rapidly pace. So we're seeing a very rapid growth of the technology. So what's the future look like? This can be debated all day long. You can have different people coming in on different aspects to it. I called out a couple of bullet points. We're definitely going to continue to see industry investments and industry adoption of the technology. It's already shown early adoptions of where it's been successful at. There's already areas where people are seeing things that weren't thought of yesterday. So we're going to continue to see that both in the short and the long term. Long term, I think we are going to see some workforce impact by that. This is going to be something we have to be aware of. I like to use the analogy a lot of times when I talk to people that when the steam hammer was first created hundreds of years ago, it put the blacksmith job, it totally evolved the blacksmith. Some people didn't like it, others did. Ultimately, what happened is efficiencies came out of that, and then humankind adapted accordingly, and we moved forward. So we're going to see, there's no, in my opinion, there is no question or doubt that we will see impacts on society, some that we can predict and some we haven't even thought about. So, kind of ran through quickly there. I'll open up for questions before I roll on the next side or the next side of this. And I can go as technical as anybody would like to or as broad. So if you're okay, Chair, I'll open it for questions.
Yes, absolutely. Any questions? Representative Neighbor?
Okay, we have heard of abuse of AI with students writing information, going to AI and say, put this paper together for me, or having somebody else do the work. Do you see that as a benefit or a drawback? And how do we address the abuse in that area?
So I'll speak in my opinion. I think AI can be used as a tool, and a chatbot is what you're referring to. So OpenAI, Anthropic, Grok, I mean, you can pick any chatbot you'd like. In my opinion, I think it is a tool that can be used and harnessed by a student or by anybody else. That tool can be abused, and I think it is up to what our overall outcome, our objective outcome is, would be to define if it's good or bad. And I'll use an example. I have a son still in high school and a couple of daughters in college, and they use AI daily. I use AI on a regular basis. I used AI to help write some of these components. So if we allow somebody to plagiarize, for example, or mislead, I think that is an abuse of the tool that we should keep an eye on. If it's used in the proper fashion, I think our youth, and anybody for that matter, can become more efficient with a better outcome with that tool. So is it okay that kids use it to write papers in classes? Personally, I think it's okay as long as that criteria has not been set up by the teacher to say this is not allowed. It's no different than, I'll convert it back to math class. Can I use a calculator in math when I do my homework? For my kids, all the way up and through 8th grade, I did not allow them to use a calculator to do long math. My kids had to do long math by paper and pen, which they remind me about still today. But it's a tool that helps them be better at what they do. Did that answer your question?
May I, Mr. Chairman? That does answer it, but then are they forgetting how to use a library and how to actually do research other than having AI answer their questions? I think they're losing a part of how the system, what the system has available and how to use it. So it may make them more creative because AI is doing it, but it's not making them more creative because they really haven't dug down deep, if you understand what I mean.
Yep. It definitely is a different way than you and I learned on how to do research and write papers. There's no doubt on that.
Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Got a couple of questions over here. I don't know who was first. Representative Oropeza? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Representative, for being here. So I think my question is as we think about using AI in the legislative process, I definitely want to caution the task force as into critical thinking, because, right, we don't want to just completely depend on it, and I depend on AI. And I think any AI that is even contemplated being used in the legislative process be closed and not website-based out into the ether or out into the World Wide Web. So what would your thoughts be? Yes, it is a tool, and yes, workforce may be impact, but there still needs to be those checks and balances. What are your feelings on that and critical thinking?
So there is a term used with the utilization of AI called hallucinations. And I don't know anybody's knowledge base on the committee, so I apologize if I'm going to bore you with a little bit of it. Again, AI at the core is a statistical model to return the most probable output. A chatbot that we use, and that's what you're referring to, I believe, is programmed. The commercial ones are programmed not to tell you, I don't know, and they use really fancy words to sound really smart. So what a hallucination is when you ask a question or you ask an analysis, it gives an answer that is the most probable, but it's not accurate. And those are two different measurables to that. A non-accurate answer. No, I'll actually give a prime example to this. This next real-world example, this next topic I'm going to talk about is a task force that we've actually formed and started already. And when I was going through the research, I was asking AI to help me analyze what other states do and what are we doing in Kansas. And it was the model I was using said, oh, there's already a task force, and here it is. And I was like, man, I've never heard of this before. Or a committee. There was an AI committee. And I was like, I've never heard of this committee. So I went on the website and I looked for it. I couldn't find it. I went through the research and I asked it, I said, where did you get this answer? I can't find this. And the reply was, you are correct. I inferred based on the topic and the assumption. It's an important topic that should be there. So it gave me an answer that did not exist. And that's a hallucination. I'll go back to the tool analysis. It's a tool that can be used. It's the user who's responsible for the accuracy of that. And I think we need to be very careful as individuals and as a legislature that we make sure the tools we use provide responsible, accurate outputs to that. I personally am not a believer that we should be using AI to write, for example, bills that come out without being reviewed and analyzed. It's our responsibilities to keep that in a checks and balance.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative Riley, I think.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just, while I was sitting here referencing Representative Neighbor's question about kids coming in, kids driving down the road and asking to write a paper, I liked it very much of what's been happening to all of us in the last 25 years of tell our car, push a button and get the directions of take me home, take me to the grocery store, take me to the Kmart, where is the local Kentucky Fried Chicken, all those kind of things. And so it figures it out, tells you how to get there, how far it is and get you there, right? So therefore, does that mean that we quit using maps? I happen to know that I use GPS, which is Granddad Positioning System, because in the past, I have read maps. And so when someone asks me to go to some place in Topeka, I will open up a map on Google Maps and look at that location and know how to get there, north, south, so many blocks, get there, and I also know how to get back. I happen to know my sons and their wives. They'll say, how do I get to Walmart? They'll say, and the computer will tell them, drive 3 miles this way, so many miles, then they don't know how to get back. So then they'll say, take me home. So they've never read a map, they don't know how to read a map. All they know how to do is listen to the AI, basically. And so there is lost a tool that we learned over the last 5,000 years of how to read a map, right? Thank you.
Representative Simmons.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's fun having you here instead of on the floor. We have fun on the floor. Okay, so I have a couple thoughts. One, I'm outside of this, I teach, and it's I thought about this when you were asking your question, Representative Neighbor. It's exceedingly difficult to give students writing assignments and trust anything they submit. I don't know what we're gonna do about that, but I hope the task force will find a solution. No pressure. Also, there's food for thought on the hallucinations piece. Over the interim, I was trying to remember who a client was of a lobbyist, and I looked him up. We all know this lobbyist, I'll save his dignity and I won't name him, but it showed up, so-and-so is a woman living in Kansas, representing blah, blah, blah. And I would consider him to be one of the most recognizable lobbyists in Kansas, and I was stunned that Google would have put together the very public information about him and identified him as a woman, and a slew of other things that I thought, I don't think so. Okay, those are my initial thoughts, but really my flag, I guess, for the task force also is maybe 2 weeks ago, I noticed a legislator had their laptop out, as we all do, and maybe we've seen the videos of people having job interviews where someone's on the other side and their computer's in front of them and AI is intaking the interviewer and giving them a response to give back. And I essentially saw a legislator doing that with a conferee in committee. And I thought, going back, this all makes sense, I promise, going back to the hallucinations part, I thought, do we have legislators trying to engage AI in a constructive way, but perhaps then putting forward information that isn't accurate without realizing it? So I don't know what the solution to that kind of thing is going to be, but it was something I had never considered in the context of this building and AI use. I hope maybe you'll come up with a solution. I don't know, thanks.
Yes, Representative Helwig.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Representative, for being here. I think you might cover it in your next section, but I want to preface this question so maybe you can deal with it. As legislators, we want to know how to deal with this stuff, and I like your explanation of AI that it is software. So software is only as good as the programmer, as I understand. So whenever we talk about healthcare and people making decisions on coverage, how can we assure that we don't ever lose that human piece in healthcare and making those decisions and things like that? And I'm sure it's more than just healthcare, but that's the one that scares me the most. And I think you're going to address that in your purposes of the legislature, but any thoughts so far?
And I don't want to sound like a broken record. To me, and I think most people that use AI at its core use it as a tool. It's not the end-all, be-all. And I think people need to be very cautious of that as they utilize it in whatever sector it is. Could be in the legislature, could be healthcare, could be law, could be in engineering, accounting, whatever that is. It is a tool that I think, because it sounds smart today, that the tools that are used most commonly today, it sounds really smart and never says I don't know. People put a lot of trust in the responses that they get on those. As a software, you are correct. If it is programmed with a flaw, you'll get a flawed answer. So it is extremely critical as tools continue to evolve and develop that we as a society and the developers as an industry keep very strong focus on making sure that the outputs that are generated are accurate and utilized. Losing the human touch is a debate that you'll hear at any AI discussion about what's coming tomorrow. And I think, my opinion, is as we use this more and more and it becomes more and more accurate, people will rely on it, and there will be errors made when you rely too much without checking. So I don't know if that answered your
Just, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just something that I think we need to think about as we move forward with possible legislation or oversight of the AI, that there is, that it is still a machine or a software.
Yep.
Thank you.
Anything else? You know, I've heard the comments about healthcare and using artificial intelligence to kind of do the work of screening a claim, and I think that's the point you're getting to, of deciding whether this claim is one that's legit and we're going to pay and all the rest. So, yeah, that would be one application. And you mentioned, you know, which this committee's, you know, purpose is to look at ways that legislatively, you know, and I know from talking to folks, well, Representative Simmons mentioned it also. People are using it in all kinds of ways every day here. We haven't really had a unified, you know, way of approaching how it might just be a tool for all of us to use, you know, to condense all the information that we consume, you know, like our calendar in the morning, what bills we're going to be hearing in committees, you know, what our schedule, but it has capability of helping in that thought. Do you agree?
I 100% agree with that. I think that, again, back to the tool analogy, as it's set up, I think it has very strong potential to be utilized to help the legislature around the board to be more efficient and more accurate when used correctly.
Yeah. So those are the kind of opportunities I was looking at. And as I heard her talking about how it's being used in education to write papers, but I thought there was a counter AI being used by instructors to actually detect that this has been written by artificial intelligence. Is that fair?
It is fair, and I had a discussion with a group that actually writes a lot of grants, and they were using AI to start generating grants. And just in a passing comment, I laughed. I said, probably in the next 2 or 3 years, whoever you're submitting the grants to is probably going to use AI to read that. So you're going to have AI generate the grant and AI read the grant. And you're not even going to have the human interaction to that. So it will be impacted. Where that lands, I don't know.
One last question, and then I'll get to Representative Neighbor. But, you know, and I think you covered it, but, you know, these algorithms only know the data that they're able to access in order to start the processing of all that data through the algorithm. Is that fair? And so what is available to these chatbots or whatever? What's the limits?
As it's programmed, and I won't break down extreme detail, but I will break into 2 categories. So you'll have a software package that runs the algorithm, and then you'll have the data that it runs on. That data can be set however the program is set to it. You can set up a system. Well, let me take a step back. The algorithm, most commonly that people refer to a lot of are large language models, LLMs. So those are a software or a program structure that function basically, and I'm trying not to go super detailed, they have what's referred to as nodes, and each node basically is a weighted analysis on the calculation. And these things are huge. They're literally billions of nodes that go into these large language model outputs. The software is massive. So those function, and what they function on or what they're handed. That data source could be the internet. If you put it on a closed server system, it could be a server that we point it to, or it can be individual short-term memory. So it could be the interactions that we start with. So it could have, we'll call kind of the base memory is the server of the state, that it can go and access data. And then it'll have short-term memory of how I interacted with it. And depending on how that's created, you can then have it, quote unquote, learn to get better based on my opinions. So that software can be trained on short-term memory to update that long-term memory as well. But you can, the data is controlled based on the point of the tool you're using.
All right, Representative Neighbor, sorry, you had it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is it written anywhere with AI? Because I haven't seen it. I mean, what we see is AI is the answer to everything. But is there ever a piece at the bottom that says AI is a tool? It is not always right. And please check your work. That needs to be on there.
I can't speak for all chatbots that are out there. I can speak for the ones that I use actually have a disclaimer at the bottom that say, this could be incorrect, you need to check yourself. So there are disclaimers on some of them at least.
Thank you. I wish they were on all.
Certainly. Representative McDonald, do you have a question?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My husband's a data scientist, so we're kind of in tune with AI, but at the same time, my youngest son refuses to use it on ethical principles. And as a mom, I want him to be prepared to live in the world he's about to live in and work in the world he's about to live in. And some of his points to Representative Simmons, he doesn't want his education to be, generated for him. So I appreciate that. But I think when I talk to the adults in my life too, they're very proud that they never use AI. And I don't know that that should be our goal. I think we need to figure out how to use it responsibly. We need to teach our children discernment. We need to not use it as a crutch. And so I think there's maybe a PR standpoint we need to look at and try to help people better understand, even within our legislative body, like this is a really powerful tool and we need to be really excited about the possibilities, but we need to balance innovation with care, right? So, yeah, I guess that's all I'll say for now, but I do have other things to say, but I'll wait.
I don't see any other hands on that. This conversation, and some of you are more in my age category, but reminds me when calculators came in and how people are not going to know how to do math anymore, but with their pen and pencil. So it's interesting how this has come back. But anyway, would you like to continue on?
Yep. So, as you might guess, I think very highly that this is a tool that's going to impact society. So I personally think AI is likely going to be the biggest impact of society, at least in our lifetime, if not in all of human history. I truly do. So because of that, this last summer, I ended up approaching the majority leader and I said, hey, Kansas is one of a handful of states that does not have a designated body focused on AI. And that puts us way behind the 8 ball in being prepared for something. I would like to bring together a body of experts and establish a knowledge base of experts in the industry that can be used as a resource for the legislature moving forward. And so through that discussion back and forth, ended up getting the blessing to say, yes, let's go ahead and build that body. And there was some conscious decisions around, is this a legislative body? Is this a tool? How should this, what's the time frame we are? And so ultimately what ended up happening is created, in the second handout there you'll see a task force that was created. It was predominantly private industry and higher education research with a couple of a small number of legislators to keep the communication. And the intent to this was to be truly a body that meets on a scheduled basis, that meets monthly, that then brings the experts together to understand some of the questions so we can research, analyze, and discuss some of the similar questions that are being asked here. Should we put guardrails on? What should those guardrails look like? Should we use it in the legislature? And so this task force was really designed to have two functions to it. Act passively as a resource for legislative body that could come down, committees could come down and ask questions on the topics of AI. And then that body could then discuss and then return responses based on industry expert opinion. And 2, on a active role where that as that body meets, if there's a certain technology or a gap that the body feels, these experts feel is missing, that they could then turn around and kick it to the legislature and say, hey, this is a topic you should look into. So those were the 2 main functions to it, and there was 3 pillars that we really wanted to focus on. The first one is, should we be regulating it? What are those guardrails and how? Should the legislature be using it and how? And then the other thing this body does is budgets. So should we be funding it and how? And funding could be a economic incentive to bring businesses to, could be investments into higher education to continue the research at different levels. It could be buying things where the legislature can use it. So those were the three pillars that we came to the conclusion that we should focus on in those two roles. And from there, started with a small group that has now grown to 15 members. And as you'll see on the backside, the members, there's 3 legislators. There is executive branch, an attorney general's representative from the AG's office, 3 members of higher education. So we went and got the AI experts of KU, K-State, Wichita State. And then the rest of it was, again, focused on bringing the private sector industry in as those experts. And so this body was truly created. It is not intended to have voting intentions. It's not intended to end up taking action from a legislative standpoint. It was truly built as a resource of knowledge that the legislature can then use so we are not as far behind to be prepared for the technology. So.
Representative McDonald?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, I'm going to try to say this in a measured manner, but I'm glad that you included all of these industry and education people, but you neglected to, you or whoever decided this, neglected to even inform the minority party. And so we are at a disadvantage now. We're just learning about this today. I'm not sure how this impacts our need for even having HB 2592, which is the AI task force. It's really disappointing to see, and perhaps it was an oversight, and I'm certainly not blaming you, but so often in this building, Democrats are ignored. This impacts everyone, it impacts every sector, and it is astounding to me that you could have been meeting and we heard no whisper of it. Have you met before? Are your meetings public? Are there minutes? Is there a report that you guys are gonna give? How does this interact with our HB 2592 that would create an AI task force that would be more balanced and would have, or would, will include Democrats?
So fair question on that. When the task force was formed, I ended up creating the structure behind it, and it was apolitical. Other than the legislators that are on this topic, I can't tell you anybody's political affiliation to it. And the intent to this was to be a knowledge base, not a policy driver. And to your point, should both parties be represented in a policy standpoint, I 100% agree with you. From a knowledge base, I think it would put us on a slippery slope to try to politicalize the topic itself.
I guess in response, I'd say that by not including Democrats, you maybe inadvertently politicized it, because we also have opinions and experience and certainly special interest in this. And so with no public face, without having notes from without even knowing about this, I would hope that you, as my friend, could put yourself in my shoes and understand how this is offensive and it's an affront. If we are all here to work together, and this task force has been in existence for many months, and we had no idea about it, we were never consulted, we're not even mentioned remotely in anything you've given here, I would hope that we could do better in the future. Thank you.
Representative Oropesa?
Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry, I don't have my microphone on. Representative Brantley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for everything you're doing with this, and I know you've put a lot of time and effort into it. I do have just a comment. I don't see Western Kansas, and this may affect us a little bit more in the rural area or a little bit differently, but I would just make an awareness that maybe a rural Western Kansas.
Representative Oropesa.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Representative. And I would have to echo Representative McDonald's comments as well. In addition to that, I use AI every day in my work. So I think it would have been nice to seek those people out as well who are actually actively using it. As I look at this list as well, we've included huge universities. What about community colleges? What about those people who can't afford to go to huge universities and go away? How will this affect them? Cost, money, et cetera. and just us getting different perspectives. And I know it's hard, it's a big committee already, but really whittling it down to having every perspective, because everybody's perspective is just a little bit different on every topic. Again, appreciate the work, but I think I do agree with Representative McDonald, inadvertently may have politicized this a little, may have politicized this, unfortunately. But thank you. Appreciate you bringing this to us now, and hopefully maybe we can get some notes and get caught up.
And a quick reply to that, I can tell you the request to join this, I could create this list to be 100 long, and we'll still miss individuals from a 100-long list, whether it's a certain industry or whoever. So the intent with this is that it would be a live body that would be set up on a structure, but there would be some type of continued evolution through that.
Representative McDonald?
I won't belabor the point, but the title of this paper says Kansas Legislative Artificial Intelligence Task Force. And we're all part of the legislature. So I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt. But we are all very, very interested in this topic. And I would hope that we could remedy this as soon as possible. Thank you.
Yes, I agree. It is something that's why I wanted to have this conversation today, and Representative Simmons has another question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree with what my colleague said. Is there a way to maybe add a Democrat to the task force? I hear you, there's a list of 100 long. There are only 2 parties, though. Do you think there's a process that would allow that? Could we work on one?
I think there's definitely an opportunity if it brings value to the credibility. If it brings value and credibility to the overall, I think an open discussion is definitely warranted on that topic.
I think we would all appreciate it in the building. I also think it's probably a politically astute thing to do, considering with rural Kansas has been spoken for, and I agree with that too, Dr. Brantley. But I think Johnson County, which we know leans very heavily Democrat, is also an economic hub in Kansas. Pains me to say is a Topeka, but that is the reality. And so I think just politically it would be wise to have a Democrat at the table, considering certainly their work, their industries will be affected. Thank you.
Representative Vice Chair Esau.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As I was glancing through it, did I see that you had the Kansas City Tech Council as part of it? So we definitely have the Kansas City area. And I got to attend one of their events recently, and they're very much up to date on all of this and aware of what's going on in the metro area, especially on the Johnson County side.
Representative Hellwig.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So can you just tell us how many times you've met and kind of what are the topics that you've talked about so far in your committees?
Sure. So started with the initial conversation of this, again, was an early thought of mine that we were way behind the schedule. So from there, I also had the recognition that just because it's my idea doesn't make it the best idea. So I've created a small group and ended up inviting University of Kansas, Kansas State University, KC Tech Council, the Majority Leader's Chief of Staff, myself, created a small kind of a forming committee. And from there is where the rest of this list grew from, was reaching out to those industries to find it. So the first meeting was back in December. We had that first small forming committee meet last December to say, here's the concept, here's where we need to go. How do we become a tool that's really used? And from there is we expanded out. So we've met January 9th and January 30th as well. The first full task force meeting is scheduled for March 6th. And the topic specifically is, it was a conscious decision of ethics and AI. And the industries that we're bringing in to speak of them are actually philosophers are coming to speak to basically build that framework of how does this task force set up to operate in a ethical manner moving focus. From there, the topics will be meeting monthly, and the topics would be built upon how the legislature sees. Again, this is being formed as a tool that legislature can lean on. So some of the topics that have already been kind of assumed that we would be going down would be economic development, which would then roll right into workforce, preparedness, impact. We know healthcare. I know there's some folks that talked healthcare. We anticipate healthcare would be one that's going to come down. Anticipate education's going to be one. But right now, the main topic that we'll be meeting for as a full body would be ethics.
Thank you very much.
Representative McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess my couple questions are, were these meetings recorded? Do you have minutes? And also, if the HB 2592 passes and becomes law, will your task force absorb into the new legal task force? Or how do you foresee your group going forward should this become a law?
I didn't propose the bill that's out there, so I don't know where that would form and create to. This task force was built more as again, a resource tool of expert knowledge, trying not to bring in the political aspect of it. And I am humbly enough to say that us as legislators, I don't consider us as the experts in the industry. Sure. So I think the bill as proposed, I think has a different intent and a different focus. And so would they run in parallel or merged? I don't know where that goes, to be honest with you. What was your other question?
Were these meetings live streamed or are there notes?
No, they're not.
Okay, so I think in this building, like a task force has a specific meaning. Like on our website, it says committees, task forces. So I don't know if you want to call it like AI Club or something else, but I maybe take issue with the name of it. But I very much, you all know how I feel, but I am excited about this task force bill, and I think that there's a lot of good that can come of it. But again, there are Democrats who care about economic development and workforce preparation and healthcare, and now we are at a disadvantage because not only do you not live stream these, you've already got meetings behind us and in front of us that we have not been invited to even observe. So I'll hush.
All right. Any further questions? Representative Droege.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And this is not really a question. I don't think some of us have even thought through how much AI can help. I have a son that's an engineer that deals with the Department of Defense on construction, and he was talking about how it improves his ability to go into a discussion with future construction because he'll ask AI what kind of questions they're going to ask. He can pursue what laws and statutes they might bring up, and he says that he talked about how it made it such a more complete way to communicate and have these meetings as you decide how do you go on with construction. I just thought I hadn't thought of it in that depth, and even so I think in the legislature we'll probably even be able to ask at statutes and what statute we need to look at and what we need to refer to, and instead of always going to the reviser to get all the answers, we might be able to just ask Grok. Just a statement. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Representative Brantley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'm a newbie here, so when we talk about task force and committees, are there official committees that are in our legislature and then maybe a work type task force? Is there a difference here that?
You're addressing that question to me, and I don't know the technicalities of it, but there are those created in statute, and and I'm told that several of them don't meet anymore, but they're still out there in statute, and that's what the bill was that was brought to us the other day. But then, obviously, there's the ability to, and I don't know, do you have anything to offer on that front, Revisor's Office?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So there are obviously joint committees, task forces, special committees that are put in statute. The Legislative Coordinating Council also has the authority to set up special committees, interim committees. They do that in an open meeting and they approve requested days. To my knowledge, this task force has not ever been set up by the Legislative Coordinating Council and assigned days in that formal manner.
Thank you.
All right, well, I appreciate you coming and giving us, you know, your kind of your, what is in motion here? You know, we had some information the other day in the hearing, and I know you sat in on that from the Kansas Health Institute, that I thought was good research that talked about the activity in the various states. Lots of them are out of the chute and moving on this, so I think, you know, for all maybe the imperfections of how it came to be, at least we have something going, and it's an accessible thing, and that's why I wanted to have this hearing today. As you said, you're there as a resource, and so I appreciate that very much. So, committee, we will be meeting on Monday, and there's the cybersecurity bill 2547 is definitely one that I want to work on Monday. So anything that you have for that, there's several amendments based on the things that we'd heard. 2574, did I say, oh, I'm sorry, I did an inversion there. Sorry, there's a failure there. 25, what's the correct number? 74? Okay, there we go, 2574. So, seeing no other comments or questions, we've completed our business, and so we are adjourned. Thank you.